This project's called Zero Gipps, and it's located in Gipps Street in Collingwood. The client was their property and the builder was Occupant, and project management by Fontic. It was really the client saying to us that they wanted to do a commercial building, obviously, but could we do it in a different way and try and create something special that wasn't a traditional office building that can be often sterile. And I think in a post-COVID environment, there's a lot of a shift towards office buildings feeling almost a degree of residential feel. People have moved away from kind of ceiling tiles and cold environments and much more towards something that it's an extension of their lifestyle and how they live. So that was kind of the brief at a high level. So everyone I'm sure knows where Collingwood's located, a very industrial area, a lot of commercial buildings, small warehouses. The site itself has this incredible proportion to it. It's only 10 metres wide or just that by 60 metres long. So amazing proportions to have to kind of deal with and make the building configuration work. It's an old warehouse. It's not historic, but a really important part of this story is that we wanted to keep the building because it's still a part of the fabric of Collingwood, and it had some great qualities to it. The old warehouse windows with the hopper kind of, flat, the brickwork. There were things that we thought it would warrant retaining it. And the client had owned the building for some 20 years, so we thought there was a nice memory there in retaining it. So this is sort of three, simple built form responses. First was retaining the existing building. Could we do that and build the new thing on top of that so that we do, again, keep that connection to its context and those lovely little warehouse buildings you see strewn throughout Collingwood. The second part was, given the length of the site that I mentioned, splitting the building in two. And that created a really interesting opportunity about vertical circulation, connecting bridgeways, and how the two built form portions could exist together. It obviously let light in, so you needed that break or you couldn't get light to the centre of the site. Having said that, we did introduce windows all along the eastern boundary. They are on boundary, but they are screened, and you'll see how we've dealt with that screening as well. And this idea of stitching old and new. So the new thing, we want it to be a memory of the old building below, and it even reflects that in its window alignments that you'll see. So there was a lot of sketching that went on. That central split in the building became a great opportunity to promote walkability and a more sort of health and well-being that we thought was an important part to this building being one that we saw having really high ESD credentials. The notion of a clay upper, so extending the use of the clay bricks but using it in a different way above. Greening where we could. We did a lot of really interesting brickwork. In fact, some of the bricks are laid in a kind of shiplap configuration, almost a sawtooth, kind of, a bit of a nod to the sawtooth roofs. There's stretcher bond, stack bond, clay battens. There's a whole lot of different skin clay elements used on the facade. There's this central arrival area that we'll talk to. There's amenities, extensive end of trip amenities. And so the building kind of, in an exploded axo, is this sort of perforated clay object sitting atop the old building and a smaller little two-storey addition on the top, and a lot of PV, and we'll come to some of those sustainability credentials shortly. There was this idea, given that we're building onto the boundary on the eastern part of the laneway, that there was like a cut through almost into an ant's nest, that you would see people in the building, but you wouldn't see through windows. You'd be sort of seeing this silhouettes of people moving within this sort of little workplace ecosystem. Energy use, from a sustainability point of view, as this really was an important part of the project, we had over 100 solar panels on the roof that was generating around 25 to 30 kilowatts of power. That's almost all the power the building needed or needs. The responsive facade, the shading, you can see these devices, these angled hoods. They're actually a bit of a nod to the hopper windows of the old warehouse building. We've really promoted what we're calling incidental exercise and incidental interactions, where people would use the stair, not put the stair in a concrete box that never gets used. Promote walkability and those sort of interactions that are a bit more casual when you're in an outdoor environment. The end of trip facilities are wonderful. They're also unisex or non-gender specific, which is quite uncommon for a commercial building. And one of the biggest aspects this project did, or kind of credentials it has, is that it has no cars, which I think this is one of the few, if only in the city of Yarra, to get a permit with no cars, as we've seen even Nightingale projects have struggled to get that across the line because they believe it puts more cars on the street system and surrounds. So getting that through was about demonstrating a green transport plan that we were able to create and demonstrate. There's productive gardens where there's herbs grown, a breathable facade. Very uncommon that commercial buildings have openable windows, so we have mixed mode mechanical system that allows people to open up windows and get fresh air on many of the days when you can do that. It's all electric, obviously. Materials, again, was sustainable where we could, and of course we kept the old building. So there's a whole raft of things that were incorporated as part of this project. Third one down, saying 1 in 4 bike parking ratio. Again, Green Star requirement, even for a high Green Star requirement, only required about 16 to 20 bikes to be on site, because this building only will hold around 200 occupants. And we had 50 bikes on site, so almost 1 in 4. And I think the rest of those things I've mentioned. So again, it was about creating this little workplace building ecosystem where the center was this arrival point, and then people would actually go up to the different floor plates. Now, it had to be in the center, and we had to prove to council that this would work. They wanted the entrance off Gipps Street, obviously being a main street, but because the building was split in two, we were able to convince them that entering at the middle of the building made more sense, and then people would go off to those two building halves. So that's what you see at ground level now. The entrance is not off Gipps Street, it's in the middle of the laneway, which is an extension of Rockaby Street. There's this central courtyard with a small cafe, kind of amphitheatre seating, one office that is onto Gipps Street and one that's onto Singleton Street. And then we have the 50 bikes in the bike room and our unisex and non-gender specific bathrooms, which again, quite, 1 minute, well, there you go. Pretty standard floor plates. They're just kind of, you can see that they were left open so that they could be adapted and used how future tenants wanted. And there's a rooftop and future restaurant for part of the building. So this is how the building now looks. We did knock down part of the whole eastern facade and rebuild it, and then we put the new clay addition above that. You come into the middle of the building now through this small entrance. There's this beautiful staircase that takes you up into the building. These bricks here in the herringbone pattern were actually part of an old wall that we had to knock down, so we wanted to reuse those too. Mail rooms discreetly into the kind of the cupboards there, tiles and whatnot, just to create this quite subdued entrances and arrival experiences. The stairs, quite this dramatic thing, that black steel that just goes up the building, and galvanised steel hand welded for all the walkways and linking bridges. Things like signage just done simply with paint onto the building. We wanted it to have this rawness and sort of grittiness that you do see in Collingwood. I love this photo just because it shows how it sits in with that, into that Collingwood context and the real earthy warmth of that facade. So those windows are operable in behind them. Time. You can see the shiplap brickwork here. They are full bricks, not slithers of bricks or anything else. And I can take questions.